All right, everybody, welcome back. Good afternoon. And now we've got just a half dozen more defenders to look at here. And then we're going to call it good. Just guys who I missed, guys who are interesting, guys who the Seahawks have maybe shown interest in, but I just didn't get them my first time through. All right, we're going to start off with Zion Logue, defensive lineman from Georgia. This was a guy the Hawks Nest mentioned in our dual stream that I hadn't looked at the time, so I've looked at him now. Bigger guy, 6'6", 314 pounds, which is kind of up Mike McDonald's alley when you think about his 4 eye guys. 33.5-inch arms, 10-inch hands. Testing was mostly not good, although he is a bigger guy, so it's understandable. Like he had a 5'14", 40, 1.82, 10-yard split, but he's big, so I can live with it a little bit. PFF, ESPN both have him getting drafted in the 6th or 7th. CBS has him undrafted. The database has him undrafted. Not much production over the last 2 years, although he doesn't play that much because he's on Georgia, and on Georgia you rotate. Over the last 2 years combined, he has 33 tackles, 2.5 for loss, half a sack, 4 passes defensed, and a forced fumble, and 1 year with a notable PFF grade, 71.2. So it's definitely a projection. He hasn't played enough to know for a fact what he is. I can say this, even though he's really tall, 6'6", he does sink the hips enough to win leverage and not be the guy who gets his pads pushed up. So he understands leverage really well. He takes up a lot of space in the middle. He's somebody who can eat up a couple different gaps and take away a lot from a running back. And I think his movement skills are passable for his size. Doesn't seem like he's very cerebral. He's not very good at diagnosing plays. Like he's just kind of out there playing. He doesn't really think about like, oh, I need to be here, I need to be there. Oh, I see the run blocking developing this way, so I got to put myself here. He's not really there yet with that stuff. Didn't play that much at Georgia. I mean, we know Georgia loves to rotate their defensive linemen. It's a heavy rotation, but this was definitely an afterthought guy. He averaged barely over 1 tackle a game during the last 2 years. And he doesn't really offer any kind of a pass rush at all. He offers a little bit of value against the run, and that's it. So there's a little potential here. Obviously, I like how big he is. I like how much space he can eat up. But unless he had to, I don't know why he didn't stay in college 1 more year. If he stays in college 1 more year, he gets a chance to realize that potential and then get drafted for sure. Now, I'm not sure if he even gets drafted. I think he's clearly a UDFA guy. I wouldn't spend a pick on him. I just kind of view him as a camp body. And if he had the option to stay back at Georgia, I definitely would have done that because right now it's just not there. Okay, next guy is going to be Trajan Jeffcoat. I don't know if he's related to the Jeffcoat that the Longhorns had, I want to say like 15 years ago. But Trajan Jeffcoat is an edge rusher from Arkansas, the Razorbacks. Couldn't find his age, 6'4", 266 pounds, so he's a little bit of a heavier edge, a little bit more of a hammer. 32 3/4 arms, 10 1/8-inch hands. Testing was mixed. 40 was good, broad was good. 10-yard split was weak, vert was weak. The broad was kind of weak too. I'm sorry, not the broad. The bench press was weak, so mixed bag. ESPN has him in the 5th round, but everyone else has him undrafted. The database actually has him in the late 7th, but the actual individual big boards have him going undrafted. Not a lot of production the last 2 years, although this is kind of remarkable, and it is notable. He had 16 tackles last year. More than half of them went for a loss. 16 tackles, 8.5 for loss. I've never seen that before. So he's doing something right, I guess, and he had 4 sacks, but I mean, that's just kind of weird, right? Okay PFF grade last year. Jeffcoat was a captain for the Razorbacks defense. He was one of their team captains. He's got size. I mean, he's as big as you need an edge to be in the NFL. He's good at diagnosing plays. I think he's a pretty smart player. He understands how to read run blocking and then put himself in the right position to try to make the play. He's got some skills at gap shooting as well, which is how he makes a lot of his tackles for loss. He shoots gaps. And he's got real pass rush moves. He's not just a guy who wins off talent or ability. He's a guy who actually can throw pass rush moves at his man. Now, if he gets latched onto a blocker, he's going to struggle to shed him. He doesn't really have block shedding ability. He's not really going to do that much for you against the run. He's mostly a a pass rusher, and I know that sounds kind of weird because of all these tackles for loss he had, but I think that his ability is mostly about shooting gaps rather than holding up. Like, he's not going to set the edge. He doesn't have first step quickness or bend, so he's not going to win that way. So it's all about his ability to use his moves, which that only gets you so far. And he doesn't have a bull rush either. He doesn't have the strength for it. So a lot he can't do, only a little he can do. So he's going to try to get by on his smarts and his moves, but that's really all he's got. He doesn't seem to have the upper level talent. He doesn't have the first step quickness. He doesn't have the bend. He doesn't have the athleticism. So overall, it's hard for me to imagine him making it. He's a priority UDFA level guy to me. He is somebody who I think should be close to being drafted, but not quite. So probably in the top 300, but I wouldn't put him in the top 260, I guess I would say. So somewhere in that area where you are a priority UDFA. All right, one more guy for this video. This is another Hawks Nest guy that he kind of alerted me to, Solomon Byrd. Edge player from USC, 24 years old, 6'3", 255 pounds, so pretty good size, workable size, 33 and 5/8 arms, 9 and 3/4 hands. PFF put him in the 6th round range, but ESPN, CBS, and the database have him undrafted. And he was productive last year, too. I don't know what else he could have done, really, in terms of playing. Like, 11 tackles for loss, 6 sacks, and he forced fumbles at a very high rate. Like, I usually don't talk about forcing fumbles because I think it's more luck than skill, but for this guy, it's definitely a skill. 81 PFF grade, by the way. So, pretty good. I mean, pretty reasonable production. He's got some bend. Like, he can duck under tackles with his bend, which you don't see that often from edges this deep in the draft. He's got some legitimate pass rush moves. He's got the ability to actually, like, beat people with the over-under, beat people with the swim move, stuff like that. He's got legitimate moves. He's got good strength for an edge player as well. I think he needs to find a way to use it a little bit better, but he does have a little bit of a bull rush, and the ability to rip the ball out of the quarterback's hand is noted. Like, this is definitely something that you want. He's not very explosive as a mover. He's kind of sluggish. He doesn't really have first step quickness or explosion. He's just kind of muddling through out there. Doesn't really hold his ground against the run that well, even though he's pretty strong. He doesn't have the anchor. He doesn't have a good first step. He doesn't win with speed. And if he gets put on a blocker, he's stuck. He doesn't get off the blocker. Not somebody who's going to be able to reliably get off the latch and go make a play. So, obviously limited, but there is some interesting stuff here. I think he's worth a pick in this draft. He probably wouldn't be if not for the forced fumble stuff, which I know doesn't sound like that big of a deal, but for him, it kind of is, because he does it so much. 4 forced fumbles in 1 year as a part-time player, that's something that I'm going to give credit for. So, 7th round pick, I think he's worth it. I think he's worth about a 7th round pick. And yeah, that's what I got on Solomon Byrd. All right. So that'll do it for this video. We got 3 more guys to look at. Give me a couple hours. I'll get that video up. And then we are moving on to the next phase of pre-draft coverage. Be excited, guys. Thank you for bearing with me. I know it's been a lot. I know a lot of you guys probably aren't even really into it at this point. I know that, a lot of people aren't even watching these videos at this point because we've gotten so far deep. It's just hard to be hyped. But I've got to do our homework. We got to do our homework so we can ace the test. All right. See you guys later. Go Hawks.